Well, hello, and normally this is the bit where we say welcome to the popcorn counter. I'm James Rosica.
And I'm Andres Lorente.
But we're not actually at the popcorn counter yet,
No.
so I thought I would save us some time and drive us to the cinema tonight, but there's been roadworks at Kingston, and then we got diverted through Surbiton, and now my phone has run out of battery, so I'm not entirely sure where we are.
We would, if this were a road movie, we would be getting nowhere. There's a metaphor here for us.
We kind of seem to be getting nowhere. Not that I wish to disparage the inhabitants of Surbiton by calling their home nowhere, but we are kind of nowhere at the moment. Oh, sorry, where is it? Red light. Okay.
Stop.
But it does make me think, having seen a couple of road movies last week, this seems like the ideal opportunity to talk about road movies. But before we started, while we were in the car, before we started recording, you were asking, well, does a road movie have to actually feature any roads?
Exactly.
I don't think it does. Does it?
No, I think we shouldn't get hung up on one form of transportation over another. So a railway is a means of transportation, or a path of transportation. Maybe a waterway could be a road movie. That's
perfectly reasonable if you ask me. But isn't it just moving from place to place?
I guess,
the Wizard of Oz is a road movie insofar as they walk down a road.
A yellow brick road. Can that be a road?
But you don't have to actually drive down it.
It has road in the title, right? Yellow brick road. It's not yellow brick path or yellow brick railway.
My kind of question is, whether it features a road or not. If it's a travel movie, it's a transport movie. It's a movie where the story happens as you journey from one place to another. Why do they work?
Well, I think they don't always work. That might be
they don't work. That's
end of podcast. No, I think
excellent. See you next week.
I think in part they work because we want to see characters move in stories, and that might be a physical movement, but it's also emotional movement or character growth. So I think if you're going, and we talked about this when we talked about the films last week, that if you go to another place, it's not necessarily showing your character growth, but it gives you a chance to see something different, and it gives you a chance to reflect on your previous life, your sedentary life, I guess. So I think for me, that's the key thing, is that you're definitely going to another place, and how you change there. If it's dramatic, it can make for a good story.
I guess it's the manifestation of that notion that it's better to travel than to arrive, isn't it? That it's life is a journey, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm quoting from Pixar's Cars now. But I think basically that the great mystery of screenwriting, and the mystery of telling a good story on screen, is the mystery of structure, isn't it? I remember starting out trying to write for the screen and not really understanding what people meant by the idea of structure. People talk about structure, that's the hardest thing in a screenplay. I didn't really understand what structure is. But I think a road movie naturally gives your story a structure, simply because you are moving through points on a line, aren't you?
Yeah.
In the same way that your characters are moving through changes and challenges. If you set your movie on a road, then it's the structure starts to form itself. It's like the story is telling itself, isn't it?
Yeah, and you probably have points A and B at least, or A and Z. I don't know. Maybe it's A and Z, but you got your beginning and your end are kind of about that road trip. And
then when you feel that the story needs to move on to something else, well, you put everybody in the car and you drive on to the next place, and it almost sort of writes itself, doesn't it? You and I have written a lot of scripts between us, but only one together. But the screenplay that we did write together was a road movie. Do you think?
Yes. Yeah. Well, because there's a little flying in it too, as I recall. But then once a car enters, it becomes a road film. You're right. I mean,
and also it kind of there's a big bit of this. So we read a story about an American and a British guy driving around the UK writing a pub guide. And there's quite a lot of bits of the film where they're not in the car at all, and they go walking, and then they abandon the car and they go hitchhiking, and so it's like a bunch of stuff happens. But it's all about moving from A to Z, and
Yeah.
all the points that you go through to get from one to the other, and that shapes and structures the story. So it's a bit of a gift, I think, when you're writing, to put things on the road.
Yep, I think it gives you that opportunity to explore a couple of different locations, obviously, and what those locations mean for the characters when they encounter them, and different people too, right? Your secondary characters can be completely unrelated, and they can be in different, physical locations. So I think there's just always something new in a road movie. You're always experiencing something a little bit new, and you're always having detours too. I think you sort of already mentioned that when you said, if something's not happening, put the whole family in the car and move them somewhere else, and something will happen. So the detours actually become part of the story. I think that one challenge is containing those detours and making sure that structure is still there and in balance. And I think you're right. Like, you get this structure, but it's kind of a dangerous structure, because if you don't have those detours under control, then you start losing and unwinding the entire structure that's supposed to hold the story together.
I did have a little look on the internet earlier about what are the best road movies, and some people have got some kind of strange ideas. One website said that Star Wars is the best road movie. I don't think Star Wars is a road movie.
I don't consider
people travel a bit, but it's not a blooming road movie.
Definitely not.
But on the other hand, Monty Python and the Holy Grail, I would call that a road movie.
Yep, because that's a group of folks moving in sort of a direction, right, together.
Yeah, exactly.
I think throughout the whole film. Yeah.
Broadly before the invention of roads, but nonetheless, they are, and certainly there's no cars. There's just people with coconuts, but they're still. It's about the journey, isn't it? It's a journey movie.
Yeah,
and that's what gives it the shape.
Yes, definitely. And for me, boy, I think I like a road movie that sometimes doesn't end so well.
What you mean, like tonight's trip? I've got no idea if we're going to make it to the cinema before we run out of petrol. Yeah, carry on. Yeah,
I think that the one that I think sticks in my mind the most is because I saw it at too young an age, probably, and I saw it a bunch of times because it was on cable TV growing up, and that's Easy Rider.
Oh yes,
with Peter Falk and Dennis Hopper, and Jack Nicholson's in there too, and the road ends quite suddenly in that film with I can spoil it, the death of the travelers, really the murder of the travelers. And I think that's just that's a road going nowhere, or a road going towards nothingness. So sometimes that final point is not where the characters actually want to end up, but that's where they are. Like Deliverance is another. Is that a road movie?
Oh, yes.
I mean, that's that same era. That's early 70s-ish films, and those two films are sort of just etched into my mind because I saw them as a young person and loved them as a young person. But both of those films are road journeys, or river journeys in the case of Deliverance, that end in a really grim place, both psychologically and physically.
I made a little list here, which I've pinned to the dashboard here. So I promise I will try and keep my eye on the road while I talk about it. But I think if I'm going to name a favourite road movie, the one I would put at the top of my list is Paris, Texas. Have you seen that?
Oh yeah. Which
is the Wim Wenders film from, I think, 1984.
Exactly. Yeah.
Harry Dean Stanton, and at the time I only knew Harry Dean Stanton from Alien.
Oh yeah,
yeah, where he plays the character who never says anything.
Yeah.
So I was amazed. Oh wow, that guy makes other films as well. I was like, you're amazed that he appears in other films. That is sticks to that traditional shape, doesn't it, of a man who is making a journey. He has a quest, to find his wife.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful road movie. Really works. But the most moving and important part of the film is like a half-hour scene right at the very end of the film, isn't it, where they're not moving at all anymore. I think they leave the kind of like the strip bar or whatever, and then they get in his car. I think at the end of the film, it's a long time since I've seen it. I'm trying to struggle to remember the ending, but I think all the important stuff happens after he gets to the end of the road.
Yes, it's a lot. There's a lot of walking in that film too.
Yeah,
he's a walker. I love that he's a walker, and he is going somewhere, and then. Yeah, ironically, I think things kind of go sour when he stops walking, right? There are these different. He's someone who needs to be moving, and then he's not moving, and I think there's some regret about that. It's certainly a big life change to stop moving.
Right, yeah. Speaking of stop moving, the other film I put on my list that reminds me of is Speed. Do you remember that?
Oh, I do, yeah.
1994. That's one of the films that I've tried to persuade the children to see so many times, and they never like the idea of it. No one has ever agreed to watch it. Huh. I'm slightly worried that it's going to be one of those 90s films that is not nearly as good when you watch it in 2025 as it was when you watched it in 1994.
Well, I feel like it was earlier than 94. Is that's when it was?
I think I might have to look that up. Yeah. Although then I will get arrested for using my phone while driving.
No. Well, I can do it for us. I
think 1994. That's what I put my money on.
Okay. Fair enough. I think you could be right. I feel like I remember it a little bit earlier. The funny thing about Speed is, I think the first time I saw it was on a bus. And that was not a good way to see it. Yeah, 1994, you're right.
Hey.
There's a bus that goes back and forth to Boston here, so they show movies on that bus, and the bus company had the brilliant idea of showing Speed on one of the legs. And,
this is for the same reason why they never showed Titanic on cruise ships.
I think perhaps the greatest road movie for me ever is North by Northwest by Alfred Hitchcock.
Oh, yes.
And then again, that really involves more cabs and trains and other things, but
light aircraft. Yes,
it's definitely aircraft. It's definitely a journey movie, and just so brilliantly done and brilliantly written and acted. And so for me, that's probably number one on my list. And you get the classic Hitchcock images of like a famous location. It's Mount Rushmore in that one, and parts of New York City. So you get some different endpoints and some midpoints that are really quite surprising. I think what it finishes, it actually ends near Mount Rushmore as well, in the Badlands, the hills there. So it's
that's Mount Rushmore before they put Trump on it. Is that right?
Well, I think he's going to be up there next year, something like that. So it's going to be a rush job on Rushmore. Here's a road movie which I'm going to put money down that I bet you haven't seen. Okay.
There's not many films I've seen that you have not seen. So maybe you'll prove me wrong. Have you seen 1979's Radio On?
Who hasn't seen 1979's Radio On? You're kind of insulting the entire Two Real Cinema Club family here. I've never seen that film. No.
Oh, wow.
I've never even heard of it. Radio On.
Radio On. So it's just like it's a British road movie directed by Chris Pettit. It's from 1979. It features a very young Sting. I think as a guy at a garage.
Oh, wow.
It's about a guy who is, I think he's driving from London to Bristol, something like that, because his brother has committed suicide.
Yeah.
And he's going to go and either go to the funeral or investigate to find out what happened. But it's all about this journey from London to Bristol. It's just a road movie, and the people that he kind of picks up and the people that he meets on the way. The main reason I remember it is because we saw it at the Tate Gallery, and they were giving away free postcards. So I've still got a postcard of it on the fridge. That's the main thing that I remember about it: Sting and this free postcard. I think it's black and white. But it's like a real time capsule movie.
Yeah.
Because it's Britain in the late 70s when the country was at its utterly most depressed. I think.
Ooh, yeah.
When the country was so depressed that people were prepared to elect Margaret Thatcher. That's how bad it had got.
Ooh.
But it's uniquely British. Most road movies do not happen in Britain because you can't drive for very long in Britain without going into the sea.
Yeah.
So it's not a country that lends itself to road cinema.
Yeah, but what year was Withnall and I? That's like in the 80s.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to guess 1983, I think.
I remember that one. I liked that one quite a bit. I know that they go to the cottage, but they spend most of the time there, right? It's a partial road movie. Is that what would you call it?
Yeah.
Dead end road?
I mean, there is some driving in it, probably, yes. So it's like clapped out Ford Cortina, something like that, isn't there, I think? Okay, how about... Yeah. I've got some contentious questions now.
Oh, okay.
I've got some other movies where I'm not convinced that they are road movies, but maybe you can convince me that they are. First one... Sideways. Do you think that's a road movie?
I do. Yeah,
okay.
I put that on my list. I do like that film. I think it is. It's really just up to wine country and back, though, isn't it? I mean, there's not a lot of road movie stuff in it, but they're going to another place. They are driving a vehicle, and the vehicle does become sort of a character as it gets bashed up towards the end. Yeah, road movie. You don't think so, though? You disagree?
It's not the first thing I think of when I think of Sideways, but it does feature on lists of road movies.
Yeah.
So I'm not entirely sure. Okay, next one.
Well, wait a second. We could have a category like: is it a single carriage roadway film or is it a dual carriage road film?
Dual carriageway.
I think that's a single carriageway road film.
It's one of those like really narrow, windy roads that Google Maps generally tends to steer me down when I'm out in the countryside, which I don't really want to go down.
Precisely.
Right. Okay. How about? Do you think this is a road movie? African Queen from 1951.
I was thinking about this. This was when that's kind of the film that made me ask you, okay, if they're on water, because I love that film. It's a John Huston film with Bogart and Katharine Hepburn. Oh my God. Again, another one of those things I saw as a kid and loved. So I'm going to say yes, because it's a journey film and definitely takes two characters. Wow. Really, confined to that boat down a river to their grim ends, or maybe less grim ends. Depends on the character. But yeah, I would say I'm going to say road movie.
Okay. So I'm slightly surprised there hasn't been a remake of African Queen. I don't think there has been, has there?
Yeah.
I'm sure The Rock is probably working on... there'll be a Dwayne Johnson version before the end of next year, probably.
I feel like I'm a yay to your nay on these two.
Yeah, you are. You're right. Okay, and I've got one more, which I think probably is a road movie, but again, it's equivocal, which is Apocalypse Now.
Oh, oof. Tough question there. If the African Queen is, then Apocalypse Now has to be, right?
Right. Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah.
Yeah. Journey, and again, grim ends. I think these are some of the better road movies in my mind. Is that you're thinking something great is going to happen at the end of that line, and basically, no, it's death everywhere. You're going to die somewhere.
I'm getting the kind of vibe here that to make a good road movie, you have to do a Thelma and Louise, basically. There are no good road movies with happy endings.
Well, there you go.
Or if you want to make a real road movie, they've got to drive off a cliff at the end.
Yeah, and you've just dropped another great road movie name in there for us. Yeah, I think it's true. I mean, as I think about it and we talk about it, a lot of them don't have great endings, and maybe that's what makes them daring films. There's something daring about that, right? I mean, mostly we like happy endings, and people usually try to put a nice spin on things towards the end, but a lot of these road movies don't end well. Huh. I like that. Into the Wild. Is that a road movie? And
I don't even know Into the we've turned the tables now.
Now you're getting into musicals or something.
There was me feeling very smug about Radio 1.
It's a Sontag music. Yeah.
And now you just named something I've never heard of. What's Into the Wild?
Into the Wild is the film. It's about oh god, what is his name? Alexander Supertramp, I think he called himself. McCandless. Chris McCandless, I think was his name. It's a Sean Penn film that I really liked from maybe 2006 or something like that. So it's a true story. It's a true story about this young idealist character who sort of just like disavows himself of his fairly wealthy upbringing and gets rid of all his possessions, even burns some cash in the desert, and then goes up into Alaska to sort of rough it and live alone. And he's dead within 3 months or something like that, 3 or 4 months. He gets into trouble, he gets sick, he tries to leave where he is. He's living in this bus, and he eventually just does not end well. Oh my gosh, I think we're stumbling onto a theme here. It is really well done. I think it's Alexander Supertramp is what he renames himself. I think he's Chris McCandless and then ends up being Alexander Supertramp. And it's based on a book by John Krakauer, I think is his name, who's written a couple of these sort of adventures gone wrong books. So I taught the book and we saw the film about 10 years ago, and young people, they liked it a lot. But it is kind of grim for them, but because it's a journey film, and he is on the road. He's hitchhiking just the way characters do. He drives a little bit, I think, but then he leaves his car somewhere and burns his wallet, his money, and a lot of like heavy symbolism, and then sort of a tortured and disastrous ending.
God, it sounds like a remake of The Passenger, that Antonioni movie. Have you seen that?
I have, but I barely remember that. God, The Passenger.
I think I may be in the same position, because it's Jack Nicholson, isn't it, I think?
It is,
and doesn't he also kind of like burn his passport and take on a new identity, I think?
Yeah, God, that one's just so out of my mind right now. I've forgotten it.
That's I think you and me both. I'd wonder whether it's not the mind. Maybe it's the film, because I think I've seen it, and I also remember no more about it than just that.
Yeah.
And I quite like Antonioni, but there must be a reason why I can't remember any details about this.
I can't remember.
There is one other Jack Nicholson film on my list of road movies, which is The Last Detail.
Oh.
Have you seen that? Which is a Hal Ashby film, 1973.
No.
And I'm pretty sure, I hope I'm remembering this right, that Jack Nicholson is, I think he is in the Navy, and he gets court-martialed. And so kind of two military police turn up to take him across the country for his court-martial.
Yeah.
And it's his kind of adventure on the road, written by Robert Towne.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's an incredible sort of classic constellation of 1970s talent, with Jack Nicholson, Robert Towne, and Hal Ashby all working on the same picture.
Wow. No, I think that's the first I've heard of that one. So.
Whoa! Okay, two for two. Not bad. This never happens.
I know. 1979's Radio On, and The Last Detail from, you said 1973.
1973.
Wow. How about this is a 70s film, Paper Moon. Do you remember this one? Peter Bogdanovich film?
Right. I have never watched that. Is that a young Tatum O'Neal, isn't it?
With Ryan O'Neal, her father. It's
Ryan O'Neal, yes.
Daughter thing. I think it's great. It's, they're kind of like hucksters on the road, grifters, grafters, or whatnot, and good characters, great performance from a child actor. Bogdanovich really did his best. I think it's a fantastic film. I definitely recommend that one. I mean, gorgeous. It's like steeped in Citizen Kane. A lot of the black and white and the camera angles and the depth of field on all the shots. It's just it's a really great looking film and a wonderfully entertaining film and a road movie.
But most important, acid test. Does it have a sad ending?
I can't really even remember. No, I don't think it's that sad. No. But, I'm putting it back on the list. I'm going to find that online somewhere and watch it again sometime soon. Yeah.
Okay. So because we've already established, if it doesn't have a sad ending, it's not a road movie.
No.
It's a necessary ingredient.
Yikes! It's kind of scary. It's like this podcast. This very podcast could have a sad ending too.
Well, at the moment, we're accelerating towards no ending at all. We've been stuck in traffic now for 35 minutes. Oh my God, I hope we get to the cinema before we starve to death.
Oh no, a no ending could be a bad ending, I guess.
This is why they will never make a movie out of our lives. Because, we have the sad ending, but we don't have any road that's actually going anywhere. Maybe we'll get there by next week.
I hope so. There'll be a different feature. We're going to miss our feature, though.
Feature?
The appearance. Oh, you don't want to miss that, though.
Yeah, maybe that would be better.